to the Chadeauxs, where I hope you find peace in the dark. These videos are handpicked week by week, and if you find yourself enjoying the content, make sure to bring your flashlight and leave a like, because it's always dark in the Chadeauxs. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into tonight's story, I just wanted to add that the Chadeauxs merch store is now live, so please feel free, check it out. If you want to express your support for the channel, it truly does help. And for those who join the Discord, you'll get a exclusive promotional code to help save 10% off everything for 1 full month. So feel free, go forth, check it out. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy tonight's video. The buzzing of my phone pulled my eyes away from the road. An image of a smirking, dark-haired woman and the words "Heartbreaker" filled the phone screen. I thought about answering it and screaming at her to call Dylan. He'll keep you warm at night while I'm working. Dylan is more trustworthy, too. What an upgrade you've made, you selfish wench. But that wouldn't really scratch the itch. I imagined her on the road ahead of me, rolling over the top of my car before crashing behind me into the concrete. My phone buzzed again, and again, Heartbreaker was displayed on the screen. I reached the phone just as the screeching of tires and the blaring of a horn pulled my eyes back to the road. An ambulance trying its best to warn me of the oncoming head-to-head collision. I pulled the steering wheel hard to the right and back into my lane, narrowly swerving around the ambulance. Its sirens grew quiet as it pulled away down the road. I exhaled and unclenched my grip on the steering wheel. Well, hey, I thought. If I did get into a wreck, better an ambulance, right? Someone else's life would probably be in danger, though. God, I'm awful, I admitted out loud. Slouching back in my seat, I looked in the rearview mirror at my art supplies poking out of the back seat, slightly obscuring my vision of the road behind me, but adjusting my rearview mirror, I checked that my hair looked okay, and pushed a few sandy blonde strands back into place behind my glasses. I tried to smile. I was on the way to my first day on the job as a security guard. An artist in the area who owns a private studio and gallery. Why this artist would need a private security guard to watch the place overnight was beyond me. However, it paid very well, and I was told I'd have the time to spend it how I like, just as long as the job was getting done right. The perfect opportunity to paint in what I imagine will be a beautiful location surrounded by inspiration and other works of art. The road wound to the left, and the no outlet sign I was looking for came into view, turning the car down the heavily wooded road. The twisting branches overhead and dense foliage bloated out what little sunlight was left in the darkening sky. I turned my brights on and eased off the gas. The isolated road stretched on into a veil of dark trees my headlights could just not pierce. I drove in silence, the evening breeze stifled by the woods. The world lay still around me, reminiscent of an animal listening after a predator snaps a twig. A hot, buzzing sensation pricked at my right cheek, an urge to stare into the night feastering, the urge to snap my head and catch whatever was staring at me. It built into something unbearable, and just as I was about to give in, the tree line came into view. A building at the end of the road centered in a black frame of dark trees and pavement, the twilight sky as the backdrop. I could see that it was one of those modern buildings, flat white walls with oddly jutting architecture and contrasting colors, and an unsettling amount of glass revealing everything inside. Tall ferns in red pots, rows of paintings lining the walls of the hallways, and a man standing in the doorway. Deep breath, Jack. You already have the job, I muttered, wiping my hands dry, as They were clammy due to me being a little stressed. Well, stressed isn't quite the word, but anxious would be better. I put the car in park in the roundabout driveway and got out. "Mr. Hope," I stated. Not a question, the voice of a professional. "Yep," I said. "I'm Jack. We talked on the phone yesterday." "Your shift starts at 10 p.m., said the man, turning away, already stepping inside. I checked my watch, and it read 9:52 p.m. Late, I sighed. I was supposed to arrive half an hour early for orientation. The man was already inside, walking towards a desk just off to the right of the front door. "Mr. Brown, right?" I asked. "What do I need for the shift?" He didn't even so much as cock his head to the side to better hear what I was saying. Either he couldn't hear me or just couldn't be bothered to listen. I locked my car and stepped inside. My glasses immediately fogged from the sudden temperature shift, and I rubbed the goosebumps on my arms. "Hold on, I need my jacket," I said, turning back towards the door. "There isn't time." Again, not a suggestion, but a command. Not the most professional, again. "Oh well, okay," I thought, deciding I would just get the jacket later. I stepped over the desk, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. "Listen closely." Mr. Brown turned around with a flashlight to a folder. "Here's your flashlight and the rules for the evening. The keys to lock up are in the top drawer. The lights for the building are next to the desk. Read the rules quickly and get started. Should you have any questions, I will answer them in the morning. Your shift ends at 0600. Trust the rules." Dropping the flashlight and the folder in my hand, he stepped towards the door. Mr. Brown gripped the handle and opened his mouth to speak once more. "There's a jacket in the bottom drawer. Good luck." The soft latching of the door closing behind him echoed throughout the hallways. I could hardly hear his black SUV as Mr. Brown started it and drove off. I opened the desk drawer and found the jacket, navy blue with "security" printed in bright yellow on the back. I put it on, sat down, and opened the file. Inside there was a single piece of paper with the rules of the job. I started reading through them. The black door in the basement is to remain closed at all times. What basement? I scanned the area around me to find the basement door was directly behind me. How did I not notice that before? It was one of the only sections with a wall that wasn't glass. I really need to pay better attention. Sounds like something Heartbreaker would say. At the start of your shift, check that all windows and doors are locked, except for the door mentioned in Rule 1. At 10:30, cover the painting quoted "an evening in red" with a sheet and promptly uncover it at 10:45 p.m. Oddly specific, I thought. Look at the floor when walking through the West Wing. Never look up, no matter what you might see or hear. An uneasy feeling stirred in the bottom of my stomach. Music will start to play at midnight. When this happens, turn off the lights to the building and get under the security desk. The feeling grew, and I quickly read through the last few lines. If you hear breathing, hold your breath until it stops. At 3 a.m., turn the breaker off in the basement, then follow its instructions. At 3:15 a.m., make sure you are in the West Wing and do not leave this wing until 3:30 a.m. From 5:55 to 6, run. Don't listen to what he is saying. There's no way this is real, I laughed. I decided there wasn't any harm in following the rules, probably just a mean-spirited joke. I looked out the window to my right as the last of the twilight sky rolled behind the hills. My watch beeped. 10 o'clock. Well, better start locking up, I thought, but before I do, I smiled to myself, got up, and went outside. 10 minutes later, I had the easel set up with a fresh canvas and some oil paints laid out on the desk. I figured there would be no harm in killing time via painting. This building was full of inspiration, just like I'd imagined. I glanced over at the particularly interesting painting. A red kite on the moon, the earth in the background, and the water was red, and the land a pale brown. It was unnerving, but beautiful nonetheless. Better get started, I said to the empty room. I don't know why I said it out loud, but I felt it'd be better to hear myself echo than to hear nothing at all. Reaching into the top drawer, I grabbed the key ring, got up from the desk, and made my way counterclockwise through the building, my footsteps echoing softly inside the halls. I kept an eye out for the painting with a label reading "An Evening in Red." The dark forest on my right drew my eyes. The light from the building shone a measly 10 feet. I tried not to think about it. Tried to avoid the hair standing on end, the hot buzzing sensation crawling down my spine, and the urge to spin around and look. Finally, I found the painting I was looking for. It was in the North Hall, and I imagined a meadow full of red flowers lit by a late autumn sky, loving detail given to each petal. The painting was lovely, but it felt wrong. I got the same feeling looking into the dark woods behind me. Oh, grow up, Jack, it's just the woods, I told myself. Pulling my eyes away, I locked the secondary door directly across from the painting and kept moving. The building was shaped like a rectangle, just like 4 halls looping into each other. There was a basement apparently, but I had no reason to go down there until 3 a.m., as per Rule 7. I reached the west wing and remembered the rule to look at my feet just as I crossed a threshold. As I approached the hall, I noticed that this wing had no windows, just solid brick walls, and not even the same smooth white drywall like the rest of the building. A soft thud brought me to a halt. A second thud, and my heart began to pick up pace. A third, and it was coming from somewhere else in the building. I walked to the southern wing, back to the start. I heard a 4th thud, and it was coming from the east wing. I looked up to see 3 figures outside of the windows. Thud. An egg cracked against the glass, a yolk running slowly down. "Hey," I said weakly, then again trying to instill more authority in my voice. "Hey!" Wait, they can't hear me, I realized. I unlocked the front door and came around to the side. "You kids can't be egging the windows." A suggestion, not a command. "Oh, run, boys," cracked a voice, followed by hurried steps. By the time I got around to the corner, they were already gone. I looked over at the window, 5 egg yolks frozen to the glass at various heights. Dang, I wonder if I'm supposed to clean that up. I checked my watch. 10:28. I headed back to the building, conceded to cleaning up the egg later, and found the painting again in the north wing. A new figure was in the painting, a woman. She had long red hair, a dark red dress, and was looking straight at me. Her face was made up of only red eyes. They were open wide and locked with mine. I fumbled with my jacket and covered the painting quickly as I could and checked the watch. 10:31. The feeling in my gut grew to a nauseating level. Did I miss that painting before? Had she always been there? She was a small detail I could have missed, but she was definitely there the second time. The front door opened. I had forgotten to lock it behind me. Soft footsteps approaching the west wing. Was it those teenagers again? Stepping closely to the west wing, I listened to the footsteps drawing closer, and I peered down the hall quickly and saw a body lying on the floor. Its navy blue jacket stained with blood. The footsteps stopped at what sounded like halfway down the hall, but all I could see was a body, and I backed away from the hall, heart beating hard in my chest. The sounds of paper fluttering came behind me. From the security desk, I took a quick but cautious steps back, peered around the corner, and saw the folder and the rules list that had been scattered all over the floor. Then I watched in horror as my easel lifted a foot in the air, splintered violently against a window, almost as if it was thrown. This wasn't worth $450 a night. Dropping my key ring in the lobby, I ran out to my car, half concealed in the dark. My fingers were trembling as I fumbled with the car key. The key slid smoothly into lock, which popped with a twist. Jumping into the car, I locked on foot and went for the ignition. Nothing. Not even the clicking of an effort to start. No, come on. I wrenched the keys forward again, and nothing. A twig snapped in the woods to my left. I scanned the forest while moving as little as possible. Painting my eyes back and forth against a black tree line, the wind rustling the leaves and branches, I tried the car again, and nothing. Another twig snapped, closer this time. I looked into the dark and caught the faintest shifting of tree limbs, followed by the snapping of yet another twig. Something was stepping out of the woods. I jumped out of the car, not even closing the door behind me, and ran back into the building and closed the door behind me, nearly dropping the keys, and locked the door. The painting! I checked my watch. 10:44. I ran back to the north wing and pulled the jacket smartly and swiftly away from the painting. The girl was gone. I let out a sigh of relief and sucked in a breath of cold air. I slipped the jacket back on and made my way to the desk, picking up the paper and the folder, and I checked the rules. Nothing else for an hour and a half. All I had to do was sit there. Easy enough, I thought. I checked the light switches, making sure they worked, and then the building was plugged into darkness with only a single switch. I snapped them back on. No need to be in the dark if I didn't have to. I checked the building one more time, making certain that no one else was here, and sat back down at the desk. Quiet washed over me. I took deep breaths, trying to steady my heart rate. 15 minutes passed and I decided to try and calm myself down with painting, easel or not. I just popped my canvas up on the desk and when my phone rang from an unknown number. "Hello?" I said, answering the phone. "Hello, this is Mr. Brown. I just wanted to check up on you. Many prospects leave after the first hour." I wasn't sure what to say. I was scared and wanted to leave, but I also didn't want to disappoint. Plus, my car's dead. "I think I made a few mistakes," I admitted. What rules?" "Depending on the rule, you could be in quite a bit of..." Mr. Brown's voice cut off in heavy static. "Hello? Hello? Yes, I'm still here." His voice again cutting through the static. "Well, I was late to cover the painting and I left the front door unlocked. I think someone entered the building, but I haven't seen anyone." "Did you hear footsteps?" "Yes." "Where did they go?" "Think clearly, Mr. Hope. This is quite an important detail." West. The west wing." Understood. You should be fine." "The door is locked now, right?" "Yes." "Good. Just follow the rest of the rules and you'll be okay." It's almost midnight. I'd make sure you're near the lights. It can be quite fast. What? It's maybe 11:05 and I check my watch. 5 till midnight. Mr. Brown, what? How is it midnight? The line was already dead. The call must have dropped but how was it already midnight? I waited the last few minutes, watched my watch strike midnight, and promptly shut off the lights and made for the desk. The music started. Not really music, though, just the first few notes of a song, repeating over and over softly. It was kind of odd, metallic instrument playing along. I strained my neck and tried to listen. 2 evenly spaced quarter notes followed by 2 quick eighth notes. The instrument made a clicking sound, stopped, and burst back into song, much more rapidly. Straight 16th notes now. Not an instrument. Feet. What was I supposed to be hiding from? I noticed that I had leaned my head out to listen to the sounds and tucked it back in under the desk, cursing at my stupidity. The 16th notes grew louder, but slowed down, back to the original 2 quarter and eighth notes. The sounds changed. Metal on wood, no longer metal on marble. It was crawling over the desk. Now I could hear a soft, whirring noise. Then it breathed, a ragged breath. Rule 6 filled my mind with panic, and I sharply inhaled. The feet stopped. I'm dead. No way I was coming back from this one. A minute dragged by, and I could still hear the rasping breath. My lungs burned, and I could feel the rising pressure in the pit of my chest. Then the music stopped, followed by the breathing, and I attempted to stifle my exhale. I sat in silence, drawing in deep, quick breaths, feeling the oxygen rush around my body, in and out. I kept telling myself to breathe, and I willed my hands to unclench, wincing at the indentations of my left palms as I tried to flex them. I crawled out from underneath the desk and peeked over the top. The top of the desk was what now looked like a well-used cutting board. I felt along the divots, and they were jagged, like a serrated knife had been used to cut meat here. The meat being butchered. What if it was me? Or what if I pass out from shock? How long would it take for me to die? How long would it take for someone to find my body? Would Mr. Brown just bury me out back and find a new college graduate? Desperate for money? To sacrifice to this place? Whatever it may be. I shuddered at the thought. He can't seriously expect me to survive this night. I only had a few rules left that I had yet to experience. I trusted Rule 5, and I'm still alive. I resigned to trust the rules for now. Thinking of what was next, the breaker in the basement, and its rules, time came to turn off the breaker. Cool air flowed past me when I opened the basement door, and the smell of salt filled my nostrils. Flicking the light switch next to me, I took a tentative first step. The board, fiendlessly, announced my presence. I held my hand against the stone wall and crept down the stairs, tensed, body half turned, ready to spring up the stairs should anything happen. 3 steps left. 2 steps. 1. My foot landed on the concrete floor, the unfinished basement walls concealed a great many shadows. The landing was isolated from the rest, and there was an unfinished frame where a door would be, to go 3 feet in front of me to the left. I inched closer to the frame and listened for a moment, hearing only the sound of my heart. I appeared around the corner, and the room was bare, save for a black double door on the far side, a solitary breaker on the left wall. The double door was chained shut. A tall line of salt crossed over the door. There was even salt placed at the bottom of the door frame, as well as the top. I took a closer look at the door frame that I was peering through. Salt filled the crevices in the unfinished wall surrounding the frame. Was it to prevent a hex or keep some ethereal being trapped in place? I didn't even want to think about that. Seemed too far-fetched for my mind to handle at this given time. My watch read 2:58. It was now or never. I took the first steps into the room, and just beyond the threshold of the room shifted in temperature. It was hot, swelteringly so. Stepping up to the breaker, I grabbed it, checking my watch. 2:59. With a beep, the screen changed to 3 a.m. I pulled the lever down and a dim light in the basement went out. "Don't let it go," whispered a voice behind me. Every muscle in my body locked tight, and I felt a hot breath on my neck, and still I felt a chill run down my spine. "Good. Now stand perfectly still." The door to the basement creaked open. Thudding footsteps began a low descent. A deep moan echoed down the stairs, and the floorboards creaked with an uneven pace of horrifying, painstakingly approaching. I counted the steps in my head. It was halfway down. My fist clenched tighter on the breaker, and I could feel my heart beat in the palm of my hand. "Wrong," the voice said, still in a whisper, but it was loud and right in my ear. I said, "Perfectly still." I felt a sharp poke in my side and resisted the urge to flinch, fearing what would happen if I did. "Better," chuckled the voice. The footsteps continued their slow, crawling descent. Another moan echoed, louder than before, and it was full of sorrow and pain. The moan of a creature hungry for release. 1, 2, 3 more steps, and with a soft slap, the horror of whatever was coming my way reached the bottom of the step. The creaking now replaced by feet shuffling. It was somehow slower, on an even plane. Its steps were sporadic. It would take 2 or 3 steps in quick succession, then stand still like it was tired, or perhaps like it was listening. Maybe it couldn't see in the dark, and I tried to take small comfort in that thought. Another moan filled the basement, and the source turned down the corner into the basement. Its chilling moan was all too clear, with nothing to break my line of sight. "Yes, yes," whispered the voice. The steps stopped directly behind me. The smell of rot now filling my nostrils. "Now, run!" A wet and meaty hand grabbed my shoulder. Panicking, I dropped to the floor, out of its grasp, scrambling to the floor as I made my way towards where I thought the exit was. "Stay down here," whispered the voice. Silently cursing, I found my feet, placed my hand on the wall, and tried to run away from the horror. The footsteps shuffled towards me. They were slow but steady now, enticed by the idea of catching me. I circled around the room, trying to keep it away from me, and it moaned again. As it picked up its pace, I felt its hand graze me as I drove head first into the wall next to me. Its body crumpled loudly to the floor before rising again. "Now, you may turn the breaker on and leave." I circled around the room trying to find the switch, fingers finding the gap where the door frame was, and I crossed it and kept circling. Again, until again I found the door frame. The voice laughed at my torment. "Come on, turn the breaker on, Jack." The creature moaned once more, Its pace once again started to pick up. It dove for me again. Panicking, I dove into the middle of the room and tripped. There wasn't anything in the middle of the room to trip over. I felt my way back and found a metal cylinder. Thin enough, my hand fit all the way around. I tugged on it. It shifted to one side. Realizing what I had found, I flipped the breaker. The light came back on, illuminating an empty room. The creature that had been pursuing me was now nowhere to be seen. I checked my watch. 3:14, and ran. Turning into the west wing, I remembered to look down only after I had taken 3 large steps into the hall. I slowed my pace to a walk, stopped, hunched over, and tried to catch my breath. My watch read 3:16. Had it just turned 3:16? Had I made it to the wing on time? I didn't hear anything happening. The lights didn't flicker. It was utterly silent. As I stood there, staring at the ground, catching my breath, I thought to myself, would I even do this again? Was $450 a night worth it? Now that I know to take this seriously, I could probably do it a whole lot better next time. I did make a few mistakes, but granted I am still alive. Only 2.5 hours left until it was over. What rules do I have left? Rule 9. From 5:55 to 6 a.m., run. Rule 10. Don't listen to what he is saying. The last 2 I feel would make or break the night. Run for 5 minutes. How fast did I have to run, and from what, and to where, and who is he? Is him Mr. Brown, or something or someone else? My ears were flooded with sound, bone-vibrating amounts of sound. I covered my ears and hunched over, dizzy with the volume. The sound of multiple jet engines erupted from nowhere. I panned around, trying to see anything without lifting my vision too far up. I thought I could just see those sound waves. It was a miracle. The glass had not shattered. "Help!" screamed a woman's voice, barely audible over the roar of the sound. It sounded like it was coming from below me, but that'd be impossible. No way I could hear anyone from downstairs. She must be in one of the adjacent halls. "You up there? Help! It's quite loud." Up there, I thought. Then she really is downstairs. I checked my watch, only 10 more minutes left until 3:30. A siren warbled, adding itself to the noise, furthering the pressure to my eardrums. The woman wailed on again. There was no way I should be able to hear her. I am no fool. I curled up on the floor and tried to shelter myself from the noise as much as possible. I found myself staring into an air vent. I could hear her crying, a tiny sound bouncing off the interior wall of the air ducts. One last rule to go. Run. My phone rang again, and it was the same number that called me earlier. It was Mr. Brown. "Jack, hello." I didn't say anything. "Jack, answer me. It's quite rude to ignore someone speaking to you." "Yeah, I'm here." I sighed. "Listen, something is wrong. I'm on my way." "What?" I said straight. What's wrong?" I said, my voice trembling. "You'll have to trust me. If I'm not there by 5:55, open the black door and get inside." "But rule number 1. That was before all..." Mr. Brown's voice cut off again with static. "Hello?" I said, pressing redial over and over. "Hello? Damn." I stood up and walked to the front door. Checked it was locked and walked back to my desk. I stood up, walked to the front door, checked it was locked, and walked back to my desk. Then back to the front door, and back to the desk. Door, desk, back and forth. I passed the time until 5:55, pacing, making sure my shoes were tied. I couldn't afford to trip while running. Maybe whatever I had to run from was outside. Maybe it would come up from the basement. I propped my chair up under the handle of the basement door. I continued my pacing. My desk shifted 3 inches to the right, and I felt a hot buzz of fear and panic from the nape of my neck. Twisting around to see what had moved the desk, I checked the time. 5:55. It was time to run, but from what? The desk lurched again, and I felt something grab at my leg. I kicked on instinct and found only air. Cold tendrils crawled up from the veins on my foot, and I turned to run and found I could not move my leg. I lost my balance and fell flat on my back. The air rushed out of me. A second icy tendril grabbed my other foot and started to drag me. I kicked again and again until I felt one foot come free. Turning onto my newly freed foot, I threw myself in the opposite direction. My second foot came free. Scrambling to my feet, I ran, barreling down the south wing towards the west. Turning the corner, I looked dead ahead. Rule be damned. The body, the one from earlier, was there, now standing with its head hanging low. It stood against a wall, only turning slightly as I ran past. A crash behind me let me know my pursuer was giving chase. I turned into the north wing. My heart was racing and thumped, in time with my frantic footsteps, as fast as they may be. The paintings on the walls were yanked from the wall and thrown with great force into the glass. 3 paintings back, 2 paintings back, 1 painting between me and the invisible force. I turned the corner, my desk coming into view. It was in pieces. I imagined a similar fate befalling me should I be caught. Ripped, smashed, torn into pieces and scattered around the room, a mess for someone else to clean up. A second set of deep breathing joined in with mine. 2 events at once? Do I need to hold my breath? Could I hold it and keep this pace? I took a deep breath and slammed my mouth shut, still running for my life. The breathing kept pace with me. The invisible force threw another painting into the glass, only 2 paintings behind me. Running through the south wings, my lungs were already protesting for oxygen. Back to the west wing. The body was now turned to face me and began to shuffle towards. I locked eyes with my own face. My bloodshot eyes were looking back at me with hunger. The painting directly behind me pulled from the wall. I tried to focus on my feet. Left, right, left, right, left, right. The woman called from downstairs as I passed the air vent. In the north wing, splintered paintings littered the floor. The breathing stopped, and I took no time greedily sucking in air. Something cold licked my heels. I pushed myself harder. "Please, help me," called the woman from the vent once more. I placed the voice. It was Heartbreaker. I turned into the east wing and saw the basement door was open. I checked my watch as best as I could. Did it say 5:57? I had been running for 2 minutes, and I could already feel myself slowing down. Feeling I had no choice, I ran to the basement, pulled the chair aside, stepped in, and slammed the door shut behind me. The invisible force slammed into it, sending shivers of wood spraying all over me. Another slam, and the hinges threatened to give way. I found a handrail and rushed down the stairs, turning into the basement proper and coming face to face with the black door. The basement door banged loudly on the concrete behind me. I turned towards the door, felt for the keys, and I found a lone key made of black metal. The basement door was shoved aside, only feet behind me. I covered the few feet, slid back the lock, and removed the chains and stopped. Is it the right choice? The thought filled my mind, and I didn't have time to think it through. The rules say never to open this door, but I had broken many of the rules and survived. Besides, Mr. Brown called and said to do it. The air around my neck began to chill as cold tendrils reached for me. Did the severity for breaking the rules increase as the list went on? I have broken rules 2, 3, and 4 and survived. Did she deserve to be stuck behind this door? Was I saving her life or condemning it by opening it? She had betrayed my trust once before. Did she deserve this fate just for being unfaithful? Did the punishment match the crime? Is what I had thought. Perhaps I should forgive her, trust she won't break my heart once more. I slid the door aside and dove in, the cold tendrils around my neck uncoiling as I stepped in. A solitary painting hung on the opposite wall, lit by a single hanging light bulb. In it, a tall man, dressed in black, was surrounded by an ocean of red. There was no one in sight. I turned, braced for the force, and the moment passed. Then another moment passed, then a third. I checked my watch. 6 a.m. "Hello?" called Mr. Brown from atop the stairs. Oh God, is it over? Stepping out of the room, or at least trying to step out of the room. The air was solid across the doorway. Mr. Brown stepped out of the doorway from atop the stairs, stepping over the fallen door. He said, "What are you doing? I told you to trust rules, but you said, when you called, I didn't call you." There was ice in his voice. "I told you I would never answer questions in the morning." He stepped closer to the door. "Step out of there." "I can't. The air is quite solid," I said, pressing my hands against the air. "I see." Mr. Brown stepped up, gripped the door handle, and said, "Rule 10. Don't listen to him." Then slid the door shut. As always, if you liked tonight's video, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing, and check out the other videos I've listed on the screen before you. It helps out the channel and helps for better content next time around, should there be a next time. Anyway, you can turn off your flashlights, for the dawn is breaking and the shadows are falling.